NFL Week 12 is already here. Let's predict every single game on this slate. Starting as always with the Thursday night football game, the 7-3 Buffalo Bills travel to Houston to take on the 5-5 Texans. Man, the Buffalo Bills are coming off of a very impressive 44-point performance against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home. Josh Allen totaled 6 touchdowns in that game. In Houston, coming off of another victory that is starting to look like they might salvage their season, man. In my opinion, they have the best defense in the entire NFL, no doubt about it. But a third straight game with their backup quarterback, Davis Mills, starting. He's gone 2-0 in their first three, their first two starts with him. CJ Stroud out here versus a potential playoff matchup if they were to make it in the Buffalo Bills, man. And as you could see by the score prediction, I don't think Houston's offense is going to muster quite enough in this contest. I do have Buffalo winning 20-17. Now, obviously, there's a pathway to Houston winning this game. Their defense has given high-end quarterbacks, including Josh Allen himself, fits in the past. They beat up on the Bills last year. I think the score was like 30-13 or something in that contest because CJ Stroud in that defense really did put in a number in that game. And ultimately, it was enough for them to get the victory. Now, in this game with Davis Mills, sometimes it's as simple, man, as one team has Josh Allen, the other team has Davis Mills. I'm not counting out Houston. I like Houston plus the 6 points, but at the end of the day, Buffalo got hot. Buffalo has a decent amount of offensive pieces going right now. No Kincaid, though, so that could be tricky. I'm really excited to see how the Houston offensive line holds up against the Bills defensive line. We saw it give the Chiefs trouble, but the Texans offensive line has gotten better week after week. And can they rely on Nick Chubb and Woody Marks to kind of run this game out of contest? We'll see, but give me Buffalo right now, 20-17. Starting off our 1 o'clock slate on Sunday, we have the 6-4 Pittsburgh Steelers traveling to Chicago to take on the 7-3 NFC North leading Chicago Bears, which I didn't expect to be saying heading into week 12, but here we are, man. This is one of the more interesting NFL seasons in a while. Aaron Rodgers questionable to play in this game. I believe he has a wrist fracture in his non-throwing hand. I think he's trying to play in this game. We'll see. To be honest, I don't view Pittsburgh's offense that much differently with or without Mason Rudolph. The Bears have been getting by on shenanigans in the fourth quarter for a couple weeks now, and I do think it eventually catches up to them, but not in this game, man. I do have Chicago taking a 21-16 victory in this spot. There's a couple things that stick out to me as to why I lean with the Bears here. One, obviously, we don't know who the quarterback is going to be for the Pittsburgh Steelers, but more importantly, on Chicago's side, right? What do they do? Run the ball, control the clock. They've been winning in the trenches. Swift and Monangai has proven to be a good system. Ben Johnson has had Caleb Williams excelling at not taking so many negative plays, not turning the ball over. And I think that their offensive, system, philosophy, identity, whatever you want to call it, will stay strong against any opponent. And an opponent in Pittsburgh who I'm not confident how many points they could put up on the road in Chicago in the cold weather, whether it's Mason Rudolph or a 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers with a fractured wrist taking hits in Chicago in November. I'm rolling with Chicago to win this game. Could Pittsburgh win? Could TJ Watt make a big time play or the defense get another touchdown similar to how they got 2 last week? It's on the board, but I'm rolling with Caleb Williams and the Bears 21-16 in Chi-Town to get the Bears to 8-3. The 9-2 New England Patriots travel to Cincinnati to take on the 3-7 Bengals. And I think that there is going to be a trap game that eventually gets to New England and gives them a loss, but I just don't see a world where it's this matchup. I have them absolutely dominating the Bengals with a 30-14 victory. When I look at this matchup, it's just super lopsided. For starters, New England's offense is going to have a field day against this Cincinnati defense. I mean, every NFL team does, but when you have a leading MVP candidate at quarterback in Drake May, a running back in Travion Henderson, who's really started to find his way, Ramondre Stevenson coming back healthy. I think both of those guys could run all over this defense. Stephon Diggs, Kayshon Boutte on track to play. You got a guy in Hunter Henry. Like the New England offense obviously has tons of really solid talent on it. And then when you flip to the other side, Joe Burrow may have gotten in a full participation practice on Wednesday, Based on what I'm hearing from Zach Taylor, I don't think he's going to be playing, but with or without him, no Jamar Chase for sure in this game. You can't run against New England, so it's obviously going to be a one-dimensional offense. I'm predicting it's Flacco in a must-pass game without Jamar Chase. That spells a lot of trouble. I think the Patriots flex their muscle and win this game fairly easily. The New York Giants travel to Detroit to take on the 6-4 Lions. The Lions are coming off of a tough loss versus the Philadelphia Eagles in the cold in Philadelphia on Sunday Night Football against a very strong pass rush versus the Giants, man. I did this a couple weeks ago when the Lions played the Commanders. How do the Lions bounce back from losses, man? This is a strong identity team, a strong cultural team. Dan Campbell and these boys have always bounced back well from losses. How do they bounce back from losses against worser competition? They bounce back pretty well, man. They beat the crap out of the Commanders. So I have them doing the exact same thing to the New York Giants. I have them winning 35-16 in this matchup. I think on their home field, in a dome, out of the cold, with a defensive line that they could run the ball against, Montgomery and Gibbs. I expect both of those guys to find the end zone in this game. I think that Detroit's offense kind of gets going and starts to look like a track meet. They've actually gotten Jamison Williams going a little bit over the last few weeks. I think that that continues. And we look at Detroit again and we're like, holy smokes, the Lions can absolutely ball. For the New York Giants, man, Jackson Dart should be back for this game. It looks like he's tracking to play, so that does at least give them a fighting shot, but they're 0-6 on the road this season. I know that they fired Dayball, but just not a team that travels well particularly. I don't expect that to change with Kafka, but without Scattaboo, without Neighbors, limited on weapons. Maybe Wan'Dale Robinson could have a big day, but I just can't imagine a world where the New York Giants at this point in time have enough firepower to keep up with the Detroit Lions offense that I do think faced one of the three best defenses in football in Philadelphia, and now facing a Giants team that you can move the ball on. I do expect them to bounce back and have a pretty solid day and pick up a win in this one. The 4-6 Minnesota Vikings travel to Green Bay to take on the 6-3-1 Packers, man. I'm putting the Packers on upset alert. I'm not going to pick against them, but I was really close in this game, as you can see from the final score. I have the Packers winning 24-23, but I do think that there's going to be one of these weeks where things finally start to click a little bit for JJ McCarthy. You heard Kevin O'Connell talk about him this week. He said the cement is starting to dry when it comes to getting McCarthy to make the routine plays and get into a rhythm in this offense. And we've seen glimpses of it, man. In fourth quarters, JJ McCarthy has looked pretty decent from time to time. So I do think that there is a world where we finally see that put together for a full game. I'm just not ready to bet it to happen against this Packers defense. The Packers offense does have question marks that we'll talk about, but the defense has absolutely been electric. Micah Parsons is having a fantastic year. And in turn, like a lot of people expected, Zadarius Smith having a solid year. Quay Walker, Jerian Cooper, the linebacker duo is really, really solid. And I think that they have a defense that can contain the Minnesota weapons with the way that JJ McCarthy is playing. Now, the offense for Green Bay does worry me, especially without, Josh Jacobs. I think he could be out in this game, and if he is, that offense could quickly turn very one-dimensional. No shade at Emmanuel Wilson, but I just don't think that he's going to have a massive rushing day against this Vikings defense. And then it's all on Jordan Love's shoulders, man. And without Tucker Kraft, still without Jaden Reed, you got Dobbs, you got Golden, you got Watson, but Brian Flores, he's a really good defensive coordinator. Jordan Love in big spots has been known to turn the ball over. I could see a costly turnover in this game in the fourth quarter from Jordan Love that sets up a Minnesota Vikings win. But again, with how great that the Packers defense has been this year, my trust in Matt LaFleur, I'm not ready to pick against them quite yet, but I really did consider it. Give me go Pack go. 24-23. The Seattle Seahawks at 7-3 following a loss to the Rams travel to Tennessee to take on the 1-9 Titans, man. The Titans are 0-5 at home this year. Could this be their first win? I'm sure as hell not going to predict it. I think Seattle bounces back in a big way and wins 34-7. We've seen Seattle dominate lesser competition before. They had two very dominant victories before the Rams game where it felt like it was over by the start of the second quarter. I think it's very much so on the board that this game feels the same way. I don't believe that Tennessee's defense has any living hope of stopping Sam Darnold, JSN, Rashid Shaheed with 3 weeks now into the system. I could see him getting a big play in this game. Barner, and then that run game of Ken Walker and Zach Charbonnet. I could see both of those backs scoring in this game, similar to the Detroit game. But I think the biggest advantage that Seattle has is their top 5 defense going up against the Tennessee Titans offense. I found it hard to even imagine the Titans could get the double-digit points, which is why I didn't predict it in this spot. Cam Ward, I think it's impossible to grade him right now. I do think he actually had some decent spots last week against Houston, but you saw in that game, even in, looking the best we've potentially seen Cam Ward look this season, they couldn't get to, close to sniffing 20 points. I think the Seattle defense is a top 5 unit in the sport. I think that there's a lot of injuries to the Titans offense right now. Calvin Ridley is done for the year. You got a lot of just no names and question marks out there for Tennessee's offense. They're not a great team. Seattle is a great road team. Seattle gets out to an early lead. I would take Seattle, whatever the first half spread is in this game, over just the entire game spread, because we've seen Seattle this year. They're the best, I believe, first half team in the NFL right now. So when they jump on you quick. They get out to early leads and then they milk the clock. I think Seattle's going to do the exact same thing in this Sunday matchup. I think if what do we got? How many 1 o'clock games? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. If you got multiple screens going and you have this on one of them, you could probably turn it off by halftime. Seattle dominates. In what is potentially the most important game of the weekend, the 8-2 Indianapolis Colts, coming off of their bye week, travel to Kansas City to take on the 5-5 Chiefs. I can't believe we're at a spot, man, where the Kansas City Chiefs are 5-5, and maybe I should just quit betting on Kansas City. I do have them sneaking out the win in this game, 20-16. I don't expect it to be very high scoring if Kansas City is to win. I think if they get into a shootout level game with the Indianapolis Colts, and that means Daniel Jones is playing quality football, the Colts would win this football game, man. The offensive talent on Indianapolis is just at a really high level right now. Jonathan Taylor is higher up in my MVP ladder than Patrick Mahomes going into week 12. I didn't expect that to be the case. Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman, there's some really solid pieces. Alec Pierce. If Steichen can get these guys with a really strong game plan out the bye, and they could jump all over Kansas City early and then start to rely on Taylor in the second half of that game, that could be a really big swing in their favor. I'm excited to see Sauce Gardner, off of a bye week, fully encapsulated into this defense now. It's a really strong defensive unit. I'm not going to say top 5, but, formidable. I'd say top half of the league. But at a certain point, you have to think Kansas City's in a get-right spot. And maybe they don't this year, but I'm willing to go down with the ship of believing in Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo to figure it out. And at home, Kansas City's 4-1 this year. It's something that they got going for them. They do play well at Arrowhead. They are certainly the more desperate team in this game, which I do think desperation plays a factor in the NFL. Kansas City really could only afford to lose one more game the entirety of this season, and they have 6 games left, 6, 7, something like that. I'm rocking with the Chiefs in this game. I said it earlier when talking about the Texans Bills. Sometimes picking NFL games can just be as simple as one team has Daniel Jones, one team has Patrick Mahomes, and the team that has Patrick Mahomes is at home. It tells you a lot how uneasy I feel about this. I wouldn't be shocked at all if the Colts won this game, but the Chiefs on paper are still a really good team. A lot of the advanced metrics, offensive rating, defensive rating, like Kansas City, their 5 losses have all come in 1-score games. Not to say that those are fluky, but their wins have been pretty convincing. I think eventually they're going to win one of those 1-score games, and I think it's going to be this weekend against Indianapolis. The 2-8 New York Jets travel to Baltimore to take on the 5-5 Ravens, man. The Ravens started off the year 1-5. They've won 4 straight, but they haven't quite looked to their dominant Ravens self that we expected them to. I think that changes this weekend. I have Baltimore winning this game 27-10. I don't think Baltimore is in any rush to pile on the points in the second half, but I think that this is a pretty start-to-finish victory for Baltimore. Again, one of those games that maybe you could turn off at halftime because you know the result. Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson, that dual threat rushing attack, I expect to have a really solid day, especially now that that interior defensive line doesn't have Quentin Williams in it anymore. I think Derrick Henry could probably eat pretty well. Tyrod Taylor's getting the start for the New York Jets. They traded away Sauce Gardner. They traded away Quentin Williams. This is a team that's pretty much folded in on the season. Baltimore's a team that's still really fighting tooth and nail each week because they can't afford losses at this point. They're not going to sleep on this game. They're going to get the victory. And I think that they're going to be tied record-wise with Pittsburgh for that AFC North lead. And they're going to start creeping up to try and take over that division. Give me Baltimore 27-10. The 2-8 Cleveland Browns travel to the 2-8 Las Vegas Raiders, man. And I don't know if there's been a 2-8 battle versus 2-8 battle that I've ever been more intrigued by, but we got Shedeur Sanders making his first ever NFL career start. Last week when he had to come in versus Baltimore, let's be honest, he looked pretty bad. However, the game plan for that game was designed for Dylan Gabriel, not Shedeur Sanders, a Ravens defense that's much better than the Raiders defense at this point in time. And we watched Dak absolutely light up this Raiders defense. And I'm not saying that Shedeur is the equivalent of Dak, but I think that Shedeur could have a solid game against this defensive unit, especially if his Browns offensive line could give him some time to throw the ball. You know, Shedeur holds the ball a lot, so maybe Mad Max makes a play or two here, but I'm going to pick Cleveland to get their first road win of the year, 17-16. I do think that their weapons are just a little bit better right now at this point in time. Overall, I still like Judy. I like Isaiah Bond. I like Fannin and Njoku, Quinshaw Judkins, Dylan Sampson, a decent offensive line. I'm excited to see Shedeur. The Raiders don't really have much tape on him, which I think could play to the advantage of the Cleveland Browns. And I said it at the beginning of the year. I'll say it now. I don't know how great Shedeur Sanders is, but I think he's got to be better than Dylan Gabriel. And he's certainly a better thrower of the football. Is he a better decision maker? I don't know. Is he better off the field? That's for you to decide. For the Raiders, man, I don't trust their offense as far as I could throw them. They got dominated by that Cowboys defense, which I do think is improving. And I do think with Overshown and Quentin Williams back, they're a decent group right now. But I think the Browns have a better defense. They have the best defensive player on the planet in Myles Garrett, who I think very easily could finish with 3+ sacks again in this game versus the Raiders. And, it's going to be close. I gave it a coin flip. I landed with maybe just betting with my heart a little bit, going with Shedeur and the Browns, hoping for a fun story. But hey, man, 2-8 versus 2-8 doesn't get much more interesting than this one. The 6-4 Jacksonville Jaguars travel to Arizona to take on the 3-7 Cardinals, man. And if there was ever a trap game that I saw, this is the definition of it. An East Coast team going to a West Coast stadium, a Jags team coming off of a monster win versus the Chargers, a Cardinals team coming off of a loss. I'm going to pick Arizona to get the upset here, man, 20-17. Arizona's got a pretty solid defense, and I think that Josh Sweat, who has a ton of sacks this year, could potentially disrupt this game and make Trevor Lawrence fumble the ball. And, maybe I'm just calling my shot there. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't happen. But I still think Jacoby Brissett is a decent distributor of the football. No Marvin Harrison Jr., but Michael Wilson, he looked really solid last week. You still have Trey McBride. Trey Benson could be back. It'll probably still be that combination of DeMarcado and Zonovan Knight. But I think the Cardinals have a sneaky good defense. The Jags, I think it was fluky how much they dominated the Chargers last week. I think the Chargers were kind of just ready for a bye week. And I think that the Cardinals are going to put up a good fight in this spot. And Jacksonville is just not a team that I trust at this point in time. So if I don't trust you and you're coming off of a big win, I'm willing to bet on some regression. But if the Jags do win this game at 7 and get to 7-4, they're pretty likely to be a playoff team, I would say, especially since they have that win over Kansas City. So, if you're a Chiefs fan, you're certainly rooting for the Jaguars to lose in this spot. And if the Jags do lose in this game and miss the playoffs, they're probably going to look back at that loss to the 3-7 Cardinals as the reason why. I'm kind of betting that that's going to happen, man. Give me the Cards 20-17 over Jacksonville. The 3-7 Falcons travel to take on the 2-8 New Orleans Saints. Again, a battle of some teams with some pretty bad records, but I actually think this game has sneaky entertaining potential. Michael Penix Jr., it's over. His season is over for him at this point. Kirk Cousins is going to take over. Drake London also likely to miss this game. Dylan, why on earth then are you betting the Falcons to pick up the 28-27 victory? 2 words for you: Bijan Robinson. I think Bijan Robinson is a top 5 running back in the sport. And I think with Kirk Cousins now in at quarterback, the Falcons are going to do something that they probably should have been doing even with Penix in, and lean on that run game and lean on Bijan Robinson, even in the receiving game. I think Bijan could go for 2, maybe 3 touchdowns in this game, and I'm not being hyperbolic as well. Kirk Cousins is a pretty solid backup quarterback, if we're being honest at this point in time. You know, he's experienced. I don't think he's super mobile, but we're another year removed from that Achilles injury, so I don't think he'll be quite as stagnant as he was previously. I know they collapsed and lost to the Panthers last week when he came in, but with a full week to game plan for Kirk Cousins, a veteran piece, I think he could come in and win this football game. Obviously, New Orleans, the question is, coming off of a bye, what does the offense look like with Tyler Shuck? We're kind of due for a massive Alvin Kamara game, so maybe it's not Bijan scoring 2 to 3 times. Maybe it's Alvin Kamara. You know, again, I think this game is going to be pretty close and actually a pretty entertaining game to watch. I think that Atlanta pass rush could make maybe 1 or 2 additional plays late in this game and seal up a victory for the Falcons, but it's really a coin flip game. I'm just leaning Atlanta because I believe in Kirk Cousins more than Tyler Shuck at this point in time. Maybe it's just because I believe in Bijan Robinson more than Alvin Kamara at this point in time. The Philadelphia Eagles at 8-2 travel to take on the Dallas Cowboys at 4-5-1, man. And after that Monday Night Football game, I thought to myself, am I going to pick the Dallas Cowboys to win this football game? And then I watched every morning talk show, whether it's First Take, First Things First, The Herd, you name it, whoever, and everybody was saying that they think the Eagles are on upset alert, pick the Cowboys to win this game. All the TikTok bettors got Dallas plus 3.5. We're even getting the field goal, the hook, and I thought to myself, oh, this is a Vegas trap game. Let me take a deeper dive into this. So I did, man. And I think you could throw on Dallas's defense. I know that the Philly passing game hasn't been excellent, but I think you can throw on them. And with weapons like A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, and Dallas Goedert, and Jalen Hurts getting a lot of criticism, I've seen Jalen Hurts bounce back from a lot of criticism before. Remember how heavily criticized he was before that Vikings game? And then he had one of the best games of his career. I think we could see something similar here. I think Saquon Barkley is just a couple blocks away from breaking off some big runs, and it feels like eventually the foot's going to drop and Saquon's going to get a big play. I think you can run to the outside on this Dallas defense. And then the flip side of things for Dallas, Dak and the offense have been great, no doubt about it, but they've struggled against the higher end teams that they've faced. They've beaten up on bad teams, but I don't think that they have a single win this year against a team with a 500 or better record. The closest thing that they have is the tie that they had to Green Bay. But other than that, good teams have beaten them this year. And regardless of what you think about the Eagles offense right now, 8-2, the 1 seed in the NFC, this is a pretty good team. The pass rush could disrupt things for Dallas. If the Dallas offensive line comes to ball and really negates that Philly pass rush with Pickens and Lamb and Ferguson, I do think Dallas has a real opportunity to win this game. But I'm going to take the Eagles, and I'm going to take the Eagles convincingly with a 30-20 victory here. They haven't lost yet since bringing back the Kelly Green uniforms. They're wearing them on the road in Dallas. They're looking to sweep the Cowboys. I think that they're overall a better team, and I think that the offense against the Dallas defense has the potential to actually look pretty solid. The 6-4 Tampa Bay Buccaneers travel to Los Angeles to take on the 8-2 Rams. Man, I have the Rams winning this game 28-20. I do think that it's a one-score game, and I think that Baker is driving on the field trying to win it at the end. Tampa has lost 3 of their last 4, but they've been pretty banged up injury-wise. I think they might get Bucky Irving and Chris Godwin back in this game, and that's great for them. But I do think that the Rams are just playing the best football of any team in the NFL right now. I think Matthew Stafford is the MVP of the league. He's 27 touchdowns to just 2 interceptions this year. Absolutely filthy. Kyron Williams and Blake Corum is a real run game. So a super two-dimensional offense with excellent receivers in Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. I don't think Tampa Bay actually has the guys to cover those guys, if I'm being honest. And then on the flip side, that pass rush for LA should be able to get some decent pressure on Baker Mayfield. Not perfect pressure, but decent pressure. And overall, I just trust the Rams more at this point in time at every facet. Stafford over Mayfield, their running game, their receivers, their offensive line, their defensive line. You know, there's certainly playmakers out there for Tampa, but I think earlier this year, they were flirting a little bit, kind of the way that the Bears are right now, getting a lot of comeback victories. And I just don't think they have the juice to do that against the Rams in LA. I think the Rams offense looks sharper than it did even versus Seattle. Seattle's one of the better defenses in football, and the Rams still looked pretty sharp. So the Rams, I think, are playing the best football of any team in the NFL right now. I'm not going to pick against them. And then what's actually a pretty interesting, pretty entertaining, and pretty important Monday Night Football game. The 6-5 Carolina Panthers travel to San Francisco to take on the 7-4 49ers. I got the Niners squeaking out a 28-24 victory, but don't sleep on those Carolina Panthers, man. I like them with the +7. Bryce Young's coming off of a career game. He threw for over 400 yards last game. Tedero McMillan has really worked himself into being a true legit wide receiver 1. Xavier Legette has worked himself into being a true legit wide receiver 2 for this team. Rico Dowdle has really emerged as a solid running back. Derek Brown, J.C. Horn, Morig, like they've had some good guys show out on the defense. Dave Canales has done a really solid job with this team. And after starting off 0-2, they're 6-3 in their last 9 games. So Carolina's been playing pretty good ball if you don't count the first 2 weeks. But San Francisco, when they got that offense back coming with Brock Purdy, George Kittle, Ricky Pearsall, I know he didn't do anything statistically, but his presence of being out there, Jawan Jennings, McCaffrey, and Kyle Shanahan had his guys out there to call plays. Last week against a pretty good Cardinals defense, they put up over 40 points. Now, I'm not going to expect them to do that every week, but I think that the offense is just too efficient and going to execute at too high of a level for Carolina to keep pace with in this game. I expect Saleh to coach up the defense decently well, and the Niners, listen, is Kyle Shanahan the coach of the year? Perhaps, man. All that winning he was doing with a backup quarterback, Mac Jones, was excellent. You could make a case for McCaffrey as offensive player of the year. He has over 700 rushing yards and over 700 receiving yards, and the man has 11 touchdowns on the season. He has been great. A little bit of a revenge spot against the Carolina Panthers for him, so I expect him to find the end zone. Give me the Niners to pick up the 28-24 victory. And I'll tell you what, man, the Niners get healthy, stay healthy, bring Ayuk back. Going into the playoffs, they are not an offense that I would want to face in the NFC. As always, guys, these were just my predictions. Be sure to leave yours in the comment section down below. If you made it this far in the video and you have yet to hit the thumbs up button, I would really appreciate it if you do so. It's good for the algorithm, good for me to know you like these kind of videos. If you're not already, hit that subscribe button as well, and I will catch you next time. Peace.